you should be able to apply them to other frameworks like React or Angular or whatever you are working with. So please don't be worried, but let's get right into it. Well, Fortified Vue. If I think about fortresses, when it comes to, actually no matter if it's about web applications or in real life or in movies, media, books, I always think about fortresses to be there to protect something precious, right? May it be your peers, may it be a city with lots of people, or may it be your application with its features and its data, for example. And those fortresses, if we widen the scope a little bit, you can see them often in movies. And the first movie I think about when it comes to fortresses is Lord of the Rings. And I really loved it. I guess I read it at the age of 12, 13. I know I'm nerdy, I'm a book nerd, I'm sorry. I'm actually pretty sad I'm not in the other room when it comes to this library walls, unfortunately. But still, we have a movie theater right now and have a fortress in it, especially when it comes to Lord of the Rings. There are many fortresses, of course, but I think about one fortress a lot when it comes to protecting stuff. It's the one of Helm's Deep. It was meant as a refuge for the Rohan people, Rohirrim, and they should have been protected from the assault of the Saruman forces, right? And they said it was never conquered. Who else heard this statement? Like, oh, it was never conquered, it's safe, nothing can happen, nobody can break into our applications. Bold statement. And not only when it comes to other areas like testing, we are 100% secure, nothing will break. It can be the same with security as well. So it was with Helm's Deep, you can guess. Well, at least one of the parts of the fortress didn't hold. As you see, there's a little, how is it called, covered, which is the weak point of this fortress. And I guess it's a common weak point when it comes to all media. I say, hello, Death Star, you should be able to cover those little weak points, right? So the Uruk-hai, this Saruman force, blew it open. And in the book, they don't even need to blow it up as it was a gutter to it. And that leads to this fortress almost being overwhelmed. Why do I tell you that? No matter if you know Lord of the Rings or not. Your application's protection can be regarded as a fortress too. There are lots of precious data, lots of precious features. Maybe if you want to charge your customers or make money to have a little salary or something, you really need to protect the insides of your application against outside threats or outside people or just people who you don't want to access those parts of your application. And never ever say it's not able to being broken, because the world changes, more vulnerabilities will come up, and even no matter if it's a web application or a fortress in Lord of the Rings, as Thielin said, never feel too safe. So as developers, we need to take our part into building our applications responsibly and minding security and minding the trust the user will instill to us, right? Okay, so to think about how can we protect our applications against outside threats, we first need to find out what are the most dangerous risks when it comes to web development, right? And there's a community, a group, which helps us with that. Who of you guys heard of OWASP before? Wonderful, there are a couple of people and I love that. So this is actually a project which helps us when it comes to keeping our applications secure. OWASP is short for Open Worldwide Application Security Project, and their goal is to keep or to raise the security in web. And for this goal, they published a ranking. I guess the last one was in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And in it, we will have the most important security risk ranked. And we will take a look at 2 of the 3 most important ones, and in one, we will dive a little deeper in specific, even though we just have a limited time frame, so I'm sorry I cannot do a deep dive, but at least I want to get you started on it. Okay, the top 10 look like this. We will have those 3 points. And the first I want to take a look at is the broken access control. And although it's dealing with security risk in authorization, I do think that authentication, so being sure that the user who wants to enter protected content or wants to access your application is the one you are thinking it is, it still belongs to this most important security risk, because authentication is the first step to authorization decision. So you need to know who your user is before you are able to determine what they are able to do or not. As we are having a talk targeted to front-end developers, it's not completely the focus of this talk, but I still want to give you some guidance. And the first easy improvement, if you think about a login form with username, password, or basically any kind of authentication, is the following one. And it's easy. Please mind your error messages. Think about, okay, I want a user to enter invalid credentials. And if you say like the password is wrong, a possible attacker might know that he needs to try out more passwords, right? So like try to find some generic error messages for authentication. Maybe wrong username or password, or wrong credentials. So the attacker cannot guess which one of the data is wrong. Another thing, especially considering DDoS attacks, so if people just try out some random password combinations, is having a rate limit. So you will block the authentication of your application as soon as there's a certain threshold reached. May it be like, let's say 10 login attempt inside of like 5 minutes or whatever fits you best. But try to limit it so the people cannot just try out millions of combinations, right? Of course, you can think about using third-party libraries like Auth02. So if you want to learn more about it, as said, I'm just 5 minutes away from here. But no worries, I will not cover it in depth right now because there are more interesting points we can take a look at as front-end developers than just all of the things of identity topics, right? Or if you want to build it yourself, which might be a little intimidating, but if you want to, consider other things like JWT tokens, a token-based authentication, or something like that. Okay, I said there's one other point in this top 10 ranking I want to talk about, and I want to focus a little bit more. It's maybe something you already stumbled upon because it's pretty common. I guess when it comes to CWEs, most of the risks in it are connected to the third rank in this ranking. It's on injection. So to sum it up real quick, an injection is an attack where an attacker supplies untrusted input to a program. And the input will be executed as if it was the program's code, which is really scary, especially as hackers might not be using kind things when it comes to their code, right? So in general, it means that the input gets processed by an interpreter as a part of a command and query, and this alters the execution of your program with the parts the attacker will inject to it. That's injection. And to be specific, this includes cross-site scripting too, or XSS. So might be this, or SQL injections if there are some backend engineers here. There are lots of angles you could use, like imagine some user supplies data. Prime example, an input field is not sanitized, filtered, or validated. So this typical, okay, I enter its script tag and it will be executed by the program. Oh, maybe don't do this, please. Or having dynamic previews or non-parameterized calls without context-aware escaping, or even worse, using malicious or hostile user input directly or inside of your queries. Well, this sounds pretty bleak, right? But there are some ways on how to prevent it, especially in Vue. But as I said, I try to be agnostic too. So how to prevent it? And this is the most fundamental thing to take care of. Never, ever use non-trusted content as your component template. At least in Vue.js, I can imagine it's similar with other similar frameworks. Just don't do it. Because if you are doing some stuff like this, like here, a user-provided string, it's equivalent to allow arbitrary JavaScript execution inside of your application. And you will never want to do that. And even if it's just like not giving up the control of your code, this is like directly open up the doors for attackers. So just don't do that, just don't do it. In Vue, templates are compiled into JavaScript, and expressions inside templates will be executed as part of the rendering process. Thus, Don't keep your doors open, don't do this. And please don't expect Vue to shield you from those things completely, because it's impractical for a framework, not only because of performance issues. So please be mindful, please don't rely completely on the framework, even though they will help you. They cannot handle everything for you. So just don't do it. I cannot stress it enough, don't do it. But still, first line of defense is your framework, which means Vue can help you already a little bit. They don't leave you completely alone inside of the open, right? Let's take a look at that. So, as you might have guessed by me introducing what injection is, I already spoiled a little bit how to prevent it the easiest way. It's by using proper escaping of content. Maybe escaping strings, special characters, so script cannot be executed in any way if they are user provided, as you see here. So if you have a user provided string and you will enter such a script tag, maybe an input field or whatever, we will have a look at some other angles too. It will be escaped to, for example, this one. I guess, yeah, there we go. This one, which makes it impossible to be executed inside of Vue. And when it comes to VueJS, this escaping is done by native browser APIs like text content. And this makes it pretty safe, as if this angle of escaping is broken, it's broken in all browsers, right? So I guess it's a wonderful way of at least supporting us when it comes to be protected and to escape content. And it's not only when it comes to HTML binding, it's also when it comes to attribute binding. So these are the 2 points where Vue will help you stay secure. But as said, Vue does a lot, but it cannot be the only thing you rely upon. We are still the most important line of defense. How we build our applications, how we deal with this responsibility is even better, because it's like the last line of defense and the most important one. Like in Helm's Deep, where this part of the fortress was not breached, right? So what can we do to stay secure? First, sometimes people forget about URL as an attack vector, but if you have user-provided URLs, they could contain wrong redirections or JavaScript embedded in it. So please mind escaping your URLs too. If I think about cases on how to attack in this angle here, like here, it might be like phishing by constructing and entering URL inside of the application, which will be embedded here, or even if reflected score-side strictly attack. The URL isn't being displayed in the web application, but still the attacker could add some JavaScript inside of this URL. There are some libraries you could use to keep them sanitized, like sanitize-URL to help, but still there are not that many possibilities inside of the front end. So please mind your backend on this regard. So either use libraries or try to have your backend to sanitize user-provided URL before even being saved to the database, right? And mind that URLs can always lead to unsafe destinations if they are not like hosted and controlled by your own. They could still be like hijacked at the like server provider's site or something like that. So please don't feel completely safe, even though you try to keep them safe. Another angle, which I, as a front-end developer, was a little surprised of, was styling. Sometimes you might have user-provided styles, as you see here, where user could still, like attacker could still provide CSS to click check. Think about a UI redress attack. So picture a little login form with a button to log in somewhere. The button is provided by you, but if you have user-provided style, the attacker could put a hidden UI and control, which is like in front of your own button, and leading to like a fake login page, right? So think about such UI redress attacks. You can prevent them by allowing user-provided style only for certain styles, which are considered safe. May it be a, there we go, a background which is not able to have a complete styling change, right? Or let's say a color of a font. So keep the possibilities for the user to alter your styles to safe destination, or even consider a complete sandbox iframe where they can't hire anyone. This point could be also interesting if you're using properties inside of your Vue.js components. So it might be an idea to have object syntax and only allowing users to provide values for specific properties where it's safe for them to control. So be really mindful where you allow users to style things, to provide things, to basically interact with your application on such a level. Yeah, like I do here. And last but not least, JavaScript injection, which is maybe one of the most obvious parts where we could interfere and have user-provided ones. And my answer is pretty easy. Don't use script elements in Vue. And even if it's just for avoiding templates and random functions with any side effects, right? So you don't want to mess up with your code when it comes to that. And do the same with events too. So if you have event attributes, please don't use any user-provided JavaScript here, like a click or hover or any other event. Okay, last but not least, but it's still one of the most important points, which is an easy point, which is coming up, but still I get, especially in side projects, that people don't always mind it as they should do. If your product looks like this, please be careful. Please don't do it, because you should need to keep your NPM packages, VueJS itself, and all dependencies updated. And there are a couple of ways which are not that difficult to use, like the Dependabot if you're using GitHub, or like npm audit as a command to always keep your dependencies up to date. Another link, which I'm not sure if you can see it through the banner, but it might be worthy to take a look at CWE databases too, because there are all updates when it comes to new vulnerabilities, and if you really need to update or if you got some days time, right? For example, I guess I opened up a QR code for the VueJS ones. These are the publicly disclosed vulnerabilities you might need to take into account. Okay, so these were my first best practices to take a look at. I would love to talk with you about more best practices or go more into depth, but I want to be mindful of your time. So let's quickly sum up what I want you to remember from this talk. It's those. VueJS is the first line of defense. It will help you when it comes to building secure applications, but it's not the only one. So the first thing which you always need to take care of is not using any non-trusted template or templates you don't have inside of your own control, because you will keep your doors open if you do. Then you can apply lots of small best practices, which I already showed. I will share the slides later in Twitter too, so you can have a look at them later too. But they are like small, low-hanging fruits to utilize, and they will not eat up that much of your time. So why not using? And last but not least, might be annoying, but mind your dependencies. Yep. One point, if you notice some vulnerabilities or some security issues in Vue.js themselves, please contact them. As far as I know, they will be immediately becoming top concern, and I guess there's even a full-time contributor which will directly work on it. So if you experience or see any issues, please contact them at this email address, so we can help keeping Vue.js secure, like in the future too. I gathered some resources or more best practices you might want to take a look at, and the Vue.js SDK of Auth0 if you want to have some library for broken access control for the first rank in the security ranking of OWASP 2. But you can find me at our booth too if you want to learn more about that. And well, what's left to say then? Thank you so much for listening to me. I'm happy to meet you later on. I'll be mingling around, or I'm at the booth, and I would love to talk with you. So thank you so much.